911 dispatchers of Reddit, what are some of the dumbest calls you've gotten? Guy gets his truck stuck in the mud while out doing donuts at 3 a.m. and calls for help. Tell him he needs to pay a tow truck to winch him out. Guy gets angry and claims we are leaving him stranded in the dark. Spooky. Tell him we can send an officer out to check on him if the area is unsafe. Y'all got me f***ed up. I'm on probation and you trying to send me back to jail. Tow truck arrives and while trying to winch him out, Guy keeps taking off his clothes and trying to have with his girlfriend in the back seat of the truck the driver is working on. Tow driver leaves. Guy calls back and is now very angry that tow driver didn't give his girlfriend a ride home, since he's gonna fight the cops when they show up. Additional officers were sent. I had a woman call 911 to ask if it was legal to sell a baby. I had a guy call to report information on a drug dealer because the dealer had sold him M instead of C. The guy said this was an ongoing issue and he had finally had enough. 3 a.m. Got a call about a suspicious vehicle outside of her house. I start getting the description and get my officers en route when she says they're leaving. I get the direction they are headed and relay it. I've got 4 officers converging like a net on this guy. Now that I've got a moment, I ask the woman, what exactly did they do? She replies, they just stopped at the stop sign for a moment and then they moved on. Repo companies in the area report their repos to us, just in case the owner decides to try and report the car stolen. I started my shift that day logging several. When one of the owners calls in, we take his info, confirm it matches, and let him know it was reported as repossessed and to contact his finance company. A little while later, he calls 911 again to let us know that he paid it up to date and the address they gave him to pick up the car didn't exist, so he wanted to report it stolen. We again refer him to his finance company. A few hours later, he called 911 again. He checked his onboard GPS signal and saw it listed his car in another city, the next state over, so he had driven there and searched the city, but didn't find it, so it had to be stolen. We again explain it was repoed and to continue speaking with his financial institution. The day carries on, and we eventually get to the end of the shift. As we are wrapping everything up for our shift up before night shift gets in, he calls 911 again. He found the tow yard his car was stored at, but it was closed for the night. He needed us to open it for him so he could claim his car. We explained that it was a private business and the car wasn't stolen, so we can't just bust in and take his car. He will have to claim the car once they are open in the morning. He was so moved by our logic that he decided to try reporting it as stolen again. Some lady wanted the fire department to come burn her house down because she thought a demon lived in it. I sent paramedics and police to check on her, but I told her we'd be happy to burn her house down in a controlled training capacity if she wanted to donate it. But there was a lot of paperwork to get that started. I suspect her neighbors may have issues with this plan. Also, I'm super drunk and I got run over by a sled. Now in northern Alberta, typically this would mean a snowmobile and potentially life-threatening injuries. No, his kid hit his ankle bone with a wooden toboggan. Didn't even have a bruise. My husband used to dispatch before he was old enough to go to the police academy. We lived in a small town, ranked 3rd most dangerous in our state. Lots and lots of drug use. There was a woman who was honestly crazy. I don't know if she had mental problems before the drugs or if the drugs fried her brain, but she was a regular caller. Some of her calls she called and said that she was being After coaxing some info out of her, she said she knew who did it. It was her stuffed bear. Another time she called to report a break-in because she fell asleep with her blanket wrapped around her, but when she woke up it was bundled at her feet. She called one summer night, routinely got over 115 degrees in the summer, and said that she had walked 3 miles from her apartment and needed a ride back because she was barefoot and her feet hurt. He asked her where her shoes were and she said she was carrying them. She walked 3 miles and didn't think to put them on. Another call wasn't stupid but still stuck with me. It was a domestic V call, and when he asked what was going on, the woman yelled he threw a piping hot chicken pot pie at me. Something about her attention to detail I just thought was funny in an unfunny situation. Middle of night shift. Get a report of a guy trying to ride on a moose. Officer attends. There is indeed a male trying to ride said moose. Male is wearing a high-vis vest and a helmet, which his girlfriend made him put on, for safety reasons, of course. 1. Every Thanksgiving you'll always get the person who calls because they don't know how long to cook a turkey. Never fails. 2. Every Thanksgiving someone always puts a frozen turkey in a deep fryer, usually in a trailer home, and a fire surprisingly occurs. 3. People who have warrants on themselves love calling to complain and ask to see the police in person for a dispute. They don't seem to remember we look up everyone in the dispute, not just the accused. Yesterday morning was a cold one in my area. Icy conditions on the roads. Widespread crashes. All the good stuff. Lady calls in and complains about a suspicious substance on the road that made her car slip. She was driving too fast to see what it was but insisted that something strange was afoot. I had a lady call for a suspicious box she saw. She said she couldn't get a good description of it because she was driving by so fast. It was a speed trap. Once my dad got a call from the 911 dispatch. At first he was really confused because he didn't call them in the first place. They asked, "Sir, do you have a daughter?" "Yes." "Why?" "Well, she just called and claimed you broke her heart." Apparently my sister got in trouble when she was about 5 or 6 and called 911 claiming my daddy broke my heart. She hung up in embarrassment after the dispatcher began laughing. I've been a dispatcher for about 7 years now in a medium-sized county in Florida. Every year on July 4th and New Year's we get calls about gunshots. Every single time the caller is perfectly convinced they're gunshots and couldn't possibly be fireworks. They'll say they hear automatic weapons, or my personal favorite rapid-fire shotguns. And every single time a deputy goes out to investigate, it turns out to be the unlikely culprit of fireworks. I had one woman call 911 to tell me she found a cell phone on the ground. That's it. Irate elderly male calls 911 while standing in the sheriff's office lobby to report the clerk not being helpful. When I told him that's not something you use a 911 line for, he went apeshit, going as far as threatening to break into the office and shoot me. He was subsequently arrested. Male was arrested for domestic battery, called 911 from the backseat of the patrol car and stated he was being unlawfully imprisoned. When I told him the only thing I could do for him was to send him more deputies, he said, "No thanks," and hung up. He then proceeded to call 3 more times looking for a different answer. We told the deputies on scene. They took his phone away and added a charge of misuse of 911. Had a woman call in stating she accidentally took too much melatonin. She started getting hysterical when she felt the effects of her overdose. She was getting sleepy. A lady ran over herself with her own car. She called to let us know she was okay. This was fall of 2012. Hope she's still doing okay. The lady was calm, laughed nervously, embarrassed a couple times, absolutely refused any type of response, even quiet from the FD, and didn't say how it happened. We took down her info, gave the typical safety admonishment, told her to call back if she needed to. Around 3 a.m. Me, X County 911. Do you need police, fire, or medical? Caller: Nope. I'm calling to report there is no emergency. Me: Okay. You don't need any assistance. Caller: No sir. Everything is good here. Me: Okay. Well, you called an emergency. Caller: Click. Well, I guess I'll go myself then. Thanks bud. Too many to count. If I had to pick a favorite, I'd have to choose the time a concerned citizen called in an animal stuck in a tree. That animal was a bird. Me: 911. What's your emergency? Caller: There is a horse laying down in a field. Me: Do you believe it is injured? Caller: No, it just normally stands up. Me: Yeah, we will have a deputy go look at it. And yes, the horse was okay. My mom was a dispatcher in Arizona after college back in the 70s, and told me a great story about a call she got, or rather a series of calls from an Indian man, Indian, not Native American. I can't recall what the original distress call was about, but after that first call, he started calling back all the time because he thought she had a sexy voice. She told me he would turn the charm level up to 11, trying to woo her in his thick Indian accent, apparently as soon as she would answer the call. His opening line was "Hello Control, I love you," and she'd have to hold back her laughter. Okay, so I talked to her this morning. My recollection was close enough, and she did give me one more story, more twisted, differently funny. So she gets a call from a payphone. Guy is slurring his words, but she makes out something that sounds like "I cut off my d." So to be safe, she sends out an ambulance to the location of the payphone and relays what she thinks happened. When they arrive on scene, EMT picks up the phone, still off the hook, and tells her that yes, the dude is sitting in a pile of blood with his in hand, separated from his body. EMT just says yep, he cut it off, and ends the call to tend to the man's self-inflicted wounds. Turns out he was a depressed veteran who wanted to be a woman, and took matters into his own hands.